Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America, where each episode we bring you a fresh and insightful interview featuring one of the film industry's top directors, conducted by one of their peers. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode takes us behind the scenes of director Jason Reitman's new comedic drama, Tully. The film stars Charlize Theron as a New York suburban mom whose life is slowly being drained away by the challenges of raising 2 kids and a newborn. When she is sent help in the form of a gifted night nanny named Tully, she is at first hesitant to accept the assistance, but comes to form a unique bond with the thoughtful and surprising young woman. In addition to Tully, Mr. Reitman's credits include the feature films Men, Women, and Children, Labor Day, Young Adult, and Thank You for Smoking, the pilot for the series Casual, and episodes of the series The Office. Mr. Reitman was nominated for the DGA's Feature Film Award as well as an Academy Award for his 2009 feature Up in the Air, and garnered an Oscar nomination for directing the 2007 film Juno. Following a recent screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Mr. Reitman spoke with director Karyn Kusama about filming Tully. During their conversation, Mr. Reitman discusses how he wanted to make a movie that felt like a lenticular poster, notes that the film marks his 3rd collaboration with screenwriter Diablo Cody, and explains his process of photoboarding during pre-production.
I love this theater.
Yeah, it's a great one. Why don't I just start with the most basic question and get it out of the way, which is just the birth of the project and how you decided to do it.
I met Diablo 12 years ago now. And when I met her, what I couldn't have known at the time was that I was meeting a lifelong storytelling partner. I mean, it was the kind of beginning of a marriage. It was the first date that led to, a marriage. And these 3 films that we've made together so far that I've directed, Juno, Young Adult, and Tully, have been part of kind of a continuity. I mean, all of the films have been about growing up. Juno is a movie about growing up too fast, and Young Adult is about growing up a little too slow. And this one's about the moment when you become a parent and you realize you kind of have to grow up. And you start to think of your younger self almost as a different person. And what would it be like if you actually got the chance to say goodbye to that person? So Diablo called me up one night and said, I think I have our next movie. And she described this in 2 sentences. And I said, yeah, you got to write that. And somehow, and I think this will infuriate you as much as it does me, she wrote it in 6 weeks. And I got an email one night, and it was the script. It was the first draft. It was also our shooting draft. And I read it, and I fell in love with it, and I forwarded it to Charlize.
Wow. And did you have any anticipation that there was going to be this sort of magical element to it, or did that take you by surprise even as you were reading it?
That was part of the 2-line pitch. The 2 lines were a woman a woman has her 3rd child and is going through postpartum, and a younger version of her comes to save her.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And so then as you were prepping the movie and thinking about how to direct it, were you ever thinking of the concept of the hook or the twist, or was that kind of less important to you?
Every moment.
Interesting.
And it's funny because, I'd done a little bit of this before with Up in the Air. Up in the Air has this, surprise when George gets to Vera's door at the end of the movie. So, and that was a real thrill. That was always exciting, having on that film, always kind of knowing that and working that as we went. And I remember even on that movie one day where there had been some extras that had been with us for a lot of the film but had not read the whole script, and they were really falling for George and Vera. And I remember when they read the sides for the next day when we were going to realize that she wasn't available, and they came up to me. They were very upset and very hurt. And I was like, oh, good, it's working. But on this one, I always thought of it as, those ventricular posters where you look at the poster, and then if you just move your head 2 inches, the image shifts into something else. I always thought that's what this movie is. It's a movie where you think you're watching one movie, and then in the final moments of the movie, you realize you've actually been watching 2 movies simultaneously. You weren't aware of the other one that was happening, and that became a very exciting puzzle to figure out with every department, and it worked its way into not only kind of the obvious things of just how do Ron and Mackenzie and Charlize kind of coexist and make sense, but things like body language. The first time Tully shows up at the door, she knocks on the door. The next time she just is able to open the door. The next time she just kind of enters from stage left. Very often Charlize will start in one she'll be in a certain body language in a literal specific chair, and by the end of the scene, Mackenzie will have replaced her in the same exact body language in the same chair. When they go up to, when she's putting on the waitress outfit and they go upstairs, they start as 2 people, and as they come around and they go behind the yellow glass and go upstairs, they literally silhouette into one human being. All of Mackenzie's clothes were wardrobe of characters that Marla would have loved when she was in her 20s. The first outfit is Winona Ryder from Reality Bites, the red tank top and the jeans, and then it cycles through like a Kate Moss, Calvin Klein ad, and Claire Danes on My So-Called Life, and a few others. So, or musically, the first song, the song that Mackenzie plays in the bar at the end on the jukebox, and Marla goes, "Oh my God, that's my favorite song," is the song that's playing in the coffee shop at the beginning when Violet walks in, creating the question of whether Violet was even there in the beginning of the movie, or if whether that music triggered the first idea that sent her down this kind of imaginary journey.
And so, as you were working with Charlize and Mackenzie, were you talking to them essentially as one character, or were you were you really saying you are 2 delineated people?
I mean, it'd be great, right, if I just to Mackenzie I was like, "You're not even here." So
I mean, did you find you wanted to be tricky, or did simplifying things help? Or
there was one real keynote for Charlize. And you've worked with her, you kind of
and
know.
Mackenzie.
Yes, sorry.
And they're both brilliant.
Yeah. Charlize, it was very easy. Charlize, it was not really easy, but she wants to dig in and find authenticity so badly that if you give her the opportunity, she will go further than any other actor. And so that's what that was about. And I'm a parent and she's a parent, and that we kind of knew what her journey was there. With Mackenzie, we found something very, very early on that was a great, way in, which is when people watch this movie for the second time, or third or fourth, when they
which
buy,
I did
in
tonight,
the theater, and the fifth, you watch it from a whole other point of view. Now you're watching Mackenzie show up at the door, and she's wondering, who do I become? Who do I marry? What do my kids look like? How is my marriage? Are we talking? Are we happy? What do I do for a living? And so Mackenzie's direction was always that. And what's wonderful, Mackenzie, as you do know, is her eyes are filled with infinite curiosity and intelligence, and her acting choices always surprise you. So I felt like as soon as she kind of locked into that direction, she knew exactly where to go.
And did you talk about the idea of the spirited Marlowe that she was, or were you just really open to whatever kind of, because there were so many lovely, startling moments where she sort of does something just unexpected, and seeing the film a second time, I'm really aware that that's the kind of the lighter side of when Charlize would say something unexpected that kind of takes that dark dive, you know, and I felt like, oh, that's such a nice, such a thread to kind of keep alive.
And I mean, that's the writing, but that's Diablo. And I think Diablo knew from the beginning that we should be getting clues to who this other person was. And again, and it gets back to that idea of there's a moment, and it often happens when we have children, that our younger self seems to become a completely different human being. That when you think about yourself when you're younger, it's like thinking about a different person. And of course, Mackenzie is that person. And so we're seeing someone who walks through the door who at first seems like a foreign entity who is completely different from Marlowe. But then you're right. You start to realize they're both naming odd, intricate facts, you know, or they both have dark senses of humor. And you start to think about her life in Bushwick, which you then get this kind of peek into, and you're like, oh, that's right. She was a completely different person. And we all develop this kind of sense of shame that's it's like a two-way street. It's like, one, I can't believe that's who I was, but also I can't believe who I became. If my younger self saw me now, they would be embarrassed for who they became. And it's this kind of mutual forgiveness that happens by the end. Yeah,
I mean, it's a beautiful, the idea of also just simply caring for oneself as a narrative is it's extremely unique, very distinctive story. And when you were making it, were you looking for other reference points, or did you find that there just kind of aren't many? I mean, were there movies that influenced you in some way toward this film?
Yeah, not.
It's a
really.
tough one.
It was more. It was more people, you know. And I am definitely on the outside of this as a man. I think fathers like to do about 5% to 2% of the work and take 100% of the credit and feel very good about that. But I think it was a combination of Diablo and Charlize and a small group of women who I actually sent questionnaires to about their first months of being a mother. And I said, whatever you're willing to share with me about, and there was kind of a list of questions. One of them is actually here tonight. And it was interesting. So, and two things came out of that. One, a lot of rich detail, things like the amount of parents who have dropped their cell phones on their children's faces is an alarmingly high number. But also, I was amazed by how much they shared. And I immediately got this idea that, oh, you're not talking to anyone about this. And there's something very lonely and scary about that feeling in the middle of the night. And while I had some of that, I remembered, you know, my daughter's 11 now, but I remembered that waking up in the middle of the night and having moments of feeling clueless and feeling like, oh my God, Sam, I didn't get the guidebook and I don't know how to do this, and that kind of shame that comes from feeling like you're not doing the best job. And I think I felt a small percentage of that, but when I was reading in these pages was a much larger, overwhelming feeling. And so I think that was a bigger influence on the overall tone of the film and what we were going after than another film. I think we wanted to try to portray parenthood in as accurate a way as possible, and not be like another filmic comedy where there's a dad who picks up the baby and the baby pees on him, and you know, you get a big laugh.
It's funny that you bring up the loneliness and the sort of frightening quality of the middle of the night, because the only stylistic counterpart I could come up with in thinking about this movie and how it relates to other movies is sort of a final key scene in Pan's Labyrinth, when you realize that the young female protagonist has just been talking to no one in a cave instead of a monster.
Right.
And this idea that, you know, the middle of the night for Tully is this kind of moment of having to talk to herself, you know, talk her through something.
Right.
It's interesting to think that, you know, you were sort of, as a filmmaker, having to sort of make up your own rules Did it feel like that while you were doing it?
I honestly, I feel like, and I work with almost all the same people, and we've been on this journey together. So I feel like there's a style that we did Juno and young adult, and I feel like this continues in that style. It's a fairly loose shooting style. It's fairly handheld, very warm color palette. Each one have become progressively less contrasty, and we're going for a very soft look, and there's an attempt to make the films feel as though the director's hands are not on the camera. And I think that's kind of a general direction I've been trying to go as a filmmaker, but that has definitely been the feel of these films. But other than that, while on other films Eric, my DP, and I will sit and watch film after film and talk about what they were, and certainly for like Front Runner, my next film, we're doing that constantly. And on this one, I think there was a sense of, all right, I think we know what world this film lives in, and the work we have to do now is on character work and on making the puzzle work, and making sure the cast and crew feel like they can provide more details to make Parenthood look realistic. I think it was our assistant prop person who said, "Oh, we used to put our baby on the dryer to help it fall asleep," and I'd never heard that one before. I thought it was really good. So I was constantly looking for that kind of detail.
It's funny though that that your overarching kind of camera aesthetic is to sort of not feel the camera, and yet seeing this film a second time, I was really struck by the framing and the sense of care in essentially putting old and young Tully in sort of opposite ends of the frame. Was that something conscious for you, or did you just find it like a handsome frame?
I mean, it's funny. We've talked about photo boarding before. So when I shoot, I go about a month before we start shooting. I go to all the locations and I bring stand-ins, and I bring the script, and we take a while. We do this for weeks, and we go to every location, and I take a camera, and I have all the film lenses marked out on it, and I have the stand-ins do the scene, and I direct them through the scene, and I shoot photos of all the shots, and I build it like a storyboard because I can't draw, and it becomes this packet that every one of the keys gets. So when we show up on set, they have a photo of every shot with the lens in the location with the stand-in, so they know exactly what we're looking at, and it's already been figured out. So Eric and I do that before, so that when we get to set, that brain work has been done, and now it can become all about performance and actors, and if we have to break those rules, we break those rules. But we've done so much of that ahead of time that now on set, it's very freeing. We're not even worrying about that.
Do you like to rehearse?
I do zero rehearsal. I'm very fortunate. I get to work with brilliant actors, and my point of view has always been, I trust myself, I trust the actors, and our job is to create chemistry, create moments for the opportunity of chemistry, and I found that chemistry happens, it happens for a split second and then it vanishes, and when it happens, I want the camera to be rolling. Nothing's more heartbreaking to me than the idea of a magical moment happening in rehearsal. And, and so I do a table read. I'll do like 2 table reads because I want to hear it. And I learned so much from, particularly on Diablo scripts. As you know, having directed a Diablo script, they're really hard.
Yeah, they're very intricate.
They're and deceptively hard because the dialogue is not natural. Some of it's natural, but some of it is it's weird things to say. And some of the best people who have performed them have often been people from other places. Like if you think about Ellen and Michael and Mackenzie and Charlize, none of them are Americans, and I think there's something to the fact that they're not from here.
So they find another way in.
Yeah, they're wrapping their mouths around these sentences and figuring them out as though they're foreign, and so I want to hear it, and once it sounds right, I know within 5 to 10 takes we're going to get there. And if we don't, then it's not their fault. It's something needs to be tailored in the script, or something needs to be tailored in what I've given them to do. It's something to do with how I've seated them or told them to walk in the door or do a thing. that's what needs to change, not them. And then I do my work.
And do you like having writers on set as a rule, or not necessarily?
I do, but Diablo never shows up. I mean, it's I can't remember. I don't remember. I'm trying to remember if she was on set on Jennifer's Body. I don't remember.
She was
her
kind
really
of in and out, but I always liked it when she was around.
It's cool because she'll write, but like,
She was always writing.
yeah.
She was always writing something new.
More so, even more with time, she shows up less. On this, I think she showed up for a day. I feel this strange relay race. You know, she runs her leg and then she hands me the baton, and there's this trust that she knows I'm seeing what she's seeing, and I know to direct it no matter what. On all 3 movies, there have been moments in the script that I do not understand, and I direct them anyway. Like I shoot them anyway because I know at some point I will get it. And
What was that moment in Tully?
oh man, let me think about this for a second. I mean, there's a funny one, and this is gonna make me sound really stupid, and maybe I just am. But I didn't realize that. You know, at one point, Mark says about Ron Livingston, he hates me. And Ron then has a moment where he says, he hates me about Mark. And I did not notice that until editing.
Really?
Yeah, really.
That's interesting.
I know it's not interesting. It's idiotic. But the only way I can explain it is I'm more about music than the lyrics. I don't know the lyrics to any song. I never listen to them, and I think sometimes dialogue, I'm thinking about it as, does the rhythm of the line work? Great.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, that makes sense to me.
Right. I had a moment recently, my girlfriend, we were listening to Lola, and I had no idea that there was a transgender narrative to this song, Lola.
Even my 11-year-old picked up on that.
Yeah, and Liana's like, yeah, it's about this. I was like, no. And she's like, yeah, it is. And I said, yeah, but nobody knows that. And she said, everybody knows that. And I said, hold on. We were in the car. And I think we were driving to Disneyland of all places. And I said, and I just started, we're going to call 10 friends. We'll see. Who knows? And everyone just like
Amazing.
Dial after dial. And just like I have to be kind of reminded of how deaf I am. But yeah.
That's kind of, I love that. I love that. Well, so, I mean, talk a little bit about, you do have this intense creative collaboration with Diablo, which is just such a rare and beautiful thing to have. And how do you find that you're interested in the same things? Do you find that what draws you into a script that you haven't written?
I want to be surprised, and I so seldom am. And I'm sure you feel the same thing. I feel like I often get to a movie. When I'm watching movies, I often feel like the first act is a real thrill because it's something new, and by the second act, you're starting to go, oh, okay, they're going to go here, they're going to do this, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and like, got it. And when it doesn't, it's the most beautiful thing. I mean, it's why I love movies, and when it catches me off guard. And not just with the twist. I mean, just in anything. It's just a character that reveals themselves to be a different human being than I thought they were. And Diablo always does that. Every one of her characters moves on you, and every one of her plots moves on you. And if she's going to make a movie about teenage pregnancy, it's not going to be the movie you could ever imagine being about teenage pregnancy. And on Juno, I remember you start reading that script and you see Mark and you see Vanessa and you think, this guy I like, and she seems like a pill. And then halfway through, you're in love with her and you just hate Mark. And she does these moves. And she and I are very different. You know, we grew up in different places. We're different people. We're the same age. And so we're experiencing things perhaps at the same time. But somehow there's this connective tissue. It's like we're writing this diary together, but we're never in the same room.
I think it's a collaboration that to me really speaks to the power of kind of this cultural moment we're in right now, where the idea that women's voices are necessary in a conversation that might include the survival of civilization, because in some way by you sort of taking on and taking in that voice, it's kind of giving you access to a new realm of storytelling, to something that we haven't seen yet necessarily. And I wonder if you feel like over the 3 films that do you consciously recognize that you're taking on female characters and female stories?
I think
if that makes sense.
I've always been curious and confounded by women, and I've always deeply wanted to understand them. And I think that goes back to, I think when I was 16, my girlfriend was 26 years old, and I moved in with her while I was still in high school, and I was with her for 7 years. And I think that probably began a lifelong mission to try to understand women. And certainly, I think what you just said is true. If you want to make an original movie, make a movie about a woman, because those stories just have not been told. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I think a moment I've been waiting to happen is finally happening. But it's as important for me to tell women's stories as for me to see an interest on the part of men in women's stories.
Right.
And so I think your films have often just leaned into like natural curiosity. And I just think that changes your identity. It changes your consciousness. It changes your creativity in some way.
Do you ever feel, and this is something that I'm always curious about, because I feel like I meet women filmmakers who are on both sides of the line. I meet women filmmakers who want to tell women's stories, and that's part of their mission as a filmmaker. And then I've met women who, when they get asked about it even, are like, oh, can you please stop? I'm not a woman filmmaker. I'm just a director. Can't I just be a director like everybody else? Do you ever feel that dividing line? Or?
Oh, I mean, I do feel it, and I feel like a filmmaker who also happens to be deeply interested in women's stories, but I don't feel like that's the law for me, But back to you. I'm curious to know, in an evolution that you see for yourself, because you've made a number of films in a short period of time, which I admire so much and I'm kind of in awe of. I'd be really curious to know, for you, looking ahead, what are the things you want to try? What are the things you're afraid of? What are you wanting to tackle?
I mean, the thing I'm afraid of, I think, is the thing that every director is afraid of, is when are they going to stop letting me do this? Right?
Yeah.
It's just, and I think every director has always felt this, but right now, it even feels like that more so because of the digital revolution and where audiences have been going, and the kind of the fascination with Marvel movies on one side and episodic television on the other. Both things that I have respect for, but it leaves this kind of vacuum in the middle of movies, the kind of movies that certainly made me want to be a director. And I remember when you won Sundance, and I remember like that's what I want to be doing. And
there's not as much room, it feels like, for those kind of films. You have to carve that space out pretty early and with a lot of savvy, don't you think?
It's something to be navigated.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I remember, God, and this sounds like such an old-timey thing to say, but I remember lining up for movies like I was going to see a rock show.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the environment. And it was around the block. And we were there to see directors who were like rock stars.
Yeah.
And we might as well have been outside CBGB's, but instead, we were outside the UA, the Regent, or the Westwood, or that Lemley's up on Sunset, and watching, it's that that moment where you start watching movies that make I'm going to be a fan of movies for the rest of my life, and then you start watching a different kind of movies, and you're like, no, I want to do that. I want to be a filmmaker. I want to make stuff like that. So I just hope there's always a home for movies like that. My personal journey as a director, who the hell? I mean, like, it's
right.
like,
You can't predict.
I mean, there was a moment where I thought, I just want to make people laugh. If I can make people laugh, I'll be happy. And then things change. And then, there's a moment where, that first time as a director, you're like, I want to hurt the audience.
I still grapple with that, yes.
But there's a moment where you're like, maybe I'll hurt them. And it's messed up, but that thought goes to your head and you experiment with that. So I don't know. Who knows who will be, as directors. I just hope we get to make movies because I'm madly in love with movies.
Me too. It's so nice to hear directors at the stage of the Directors Guild saying they're madly in love with movies. It's so good. Our time is up. But man, what a pleasure to talk to you.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. If you'd like to hear more from director Karyn Kusama, check out episode 18, which features Ms. Kusama discussing her film The Invitation with director Gil Keenan. You can find past episodes of The Director's Cut wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to click subscribe so you won't miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please like, share, and leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.